Hello everyone, welcome to Das Haus with Thomas Gunn. And today we're going to be making some Christmas cookies. So these are, in German they're called Butterplätzchen. I'm sure that's also a regional term, so if you don't call them Plätzchen, it's okay. But that's what I grew up calling them. In other words, butter cookie. In other words, it's probably like obviously it's like a shortbread. So this is a recipe that's handed down. I use this same recipe to make the jam-filled cookies. I forget right now what the term is. I want to say Linzer, but I'm not sure. So you can use this recipe for both types of cookies. I'm cutting the recipe in half because of the worldwide situation going on right now. I'm not making a ton of cookies because there's no one to eat them but me, and that's not a good thing. So I'm going to do half a recipe, but feel free, if it's a normal holiday or you're having people or you want to give some away, you can certainly double what I'm about to do because that would be the actual recipe. So let's get going. I use a food processor. You could do this by hand. It's a lot more work for you. So if you've got one of these, really handy. So we need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Let's get that in there. You need 1 package of vanilla sugar. So vanilla sugar comes in a package like this. Just says vanilla sugar. This brand is, let me see, this is Dr. Dr. Edgar. Let's put that in 1 package. If you cannot find vanilla sugar, don't worry. You can use vanilla. I would probably use, for the recipe I'm doing right now, I think I would use half a teaspoon. In addition, you will need half a cup of sugar, just plain regular sugar. You will need, let me check, I'm just making sure because I'm having everything, right? So you need 1 cup of butter. So I've gone ahead and I've cut this into small cubes. Make sure your butter is a little cool at least, not hot, not soft. So let's give this a quick pulse. This is not it yet though. Let me get this on. I just want to break up my butter a little bit. So we're just going to... Okay, there we go. Let me get a spoon. Just so you can see here. Can you see the little clumps of butter? That's fine. You don't want to go any smaller than that at this stage. So now you're going to add 2 egg yolks. So I'm just going to drizzle that around just so it makes it easier on the machine to get everything going. And remember, it's just the yolks. I use large eggs. So now we're going to mix this until it starts to form a ball, and that'll be it. So let's get this going. You're going to see it start to get bigger pieces, and you're going to start to see it come together. You don't want to overdo it, but here's the difference in the sound. That's it. So let me show you this. So can you see how it's kind of all together? If I squeeze this, it makes a nice dough. We're going to turn this out onto our surface. Let me just get that, make some room. And you're just going to incorporate it. We're just going to get this all together. You don't really need this. You just want to make it into a flat round. It smells so good already. It's just butter and sugar, really, and flour. So there we go. Flatten it out. It'll make your rolling easier when it comes time. Make it into a disc. I'm going to wrap this in some plastic wrap. I don't know about you guys, but plastic wrap is made by the devil. Okay, let's cover this, get it wrapped. This will now go into the fridge just to cool down, to let the butter start to solidify a bit, because it's the butter that ends up making your cookies flaky. As the butter bakes in the oven, it releases its water content. That creates steam. The steam pushes the layers apart, and that's how you get flakiness. Same principle for pie doughs, pie crusts. Okay, this will go in the fridge. Let's say half an hour. So now, as the video title says, there's going to be a bonus. We're going to make good old North American gingerbread cookies. These are a favorite. These are chewy or crispy. So we like them on the chewy side. I'm going to show you how to do that. That all comes down to the time in the oven, okay? I'll show you exactly how to know when to pull them out if you prefer them chewy. We love them chewy. I mean, they're not ridiculously chewy, but they're chewy. They're not snaps. If you leave them in the oven longer, they become crispy. Again, this recipe I'm cutting in half. So let me just read off what you're going to need for a half recipe. You can do the whole recipe, but I'm doing a half. So for a half recipe, you need 3/4 cup butter, 1 cup sugar, 1 egg, 1/4 cup molasses, 2 1/4 cups flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons baking soda, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon ground cloves. I do not add the cloves. I don't like cloves, so I don't add them. And I mean, to us, they're good as they are. 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon ground nutmeg, and at the end you're going to need some sugar to roll them in. Okay, so that's all the ingredients for the ginger cookies, and they're easy. They're a drop cookie, you know, you roll them into balls, so that's going to be pretty easy. I'm going to set up my machine, and then we'll come back and we'll prepare those. All right, so here we go. So I've got my mixing bowl ready. I've got the paddle attachment on. First thing we're going to do is cream the butter and the sugar. So we're going to need 3/4 cup butter. Sorry. Again, 3/4 cup butter. This should be at room temperature. It'll make it easier to cream. I've cut it up into small cubes. This is going to be loud, so I'm just going to get this going for a second. Hold on. So now I'm going to add in 1 cup of sugar. So I'm going to pour that in slowly. I'm going to, let you see how I pour it in and the mixing start, but then I won't force you to watch the whole creaming process. It'll take about a minute or two. All right. So we're going to pour in that cup of sugar. If you need to scrape down your bowl, go ahead. My paddle doesn't reach quite to the bottom, so that's where I usually end up having problems. just scrape the bottom just to make sure that it's getting everything there. And the sides. So I'm going to keep creaming this, and once that's done, we'll come back and continue. Alright, so the butter's creamed. At this point, turn it on low and add in your 1 egg. Again, that's 1 large egg. I think what I'm going to do in the description box below is for the ingredients for both these cookies, I'm going to write out the whole recipe. So please keep in mind that what I'm doing right now is half a recipe. So the ingredients in the box below are going to be to do a whole batch. If you want to do what I'm doing, you're going to have to cut it in half. It isn't that hard because I'm telling you what the ingredients are for half recipes. So let me just scrape this down. You want to get that egg well incorporated. And once we've got the egg in, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of molasses. Okay, let's get our molasses. This will be a bit tricky, so I'm just going to drizzle this in as it slowly mixes. As you can see, here's my molasses. Yeah, I don't like that. So let me just, because I find if I drizzle it in, it gets hooked on the paddle. If you want to get your molasses out quicker, you could butter your measuring cup or spray it with a non-stick spray. I didn't happen to have any, so I'm doing it the old school way. So let's get this out. Yes, my fingers are clean. I just washed them. So those are the molasses. Just rinsing my hands. Let's mix that in. Okay, let's scrape it down again. So what you're trying to do at this stage is, doing the butter and the sugar and the egg and the molasses, is you're adding the ingredients that are wetter. I understand sugar is not wet, but it does melt, which then makes it wet. So let's get that going again. So now let's add in our spices. I'm going to read that off to you again. I know I'm going to repeat myself too many times, but I just want to make it clear I'm doing a half recipe, so the amounts I'm giving you are halved. So this has, let me see, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you like cloves, I don't, so I don't add them. If you like cloves, it's half a teaspoon. So I'm just going to dump this all in. And let's mix that in. Okay, another scrape. So all that's left is the flour and the baking soda. So, as for the amounts, the flour is, hold on, I'm looking, 2 1/4 cups and 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking soda. Okay, so I've already mixed the flour and the baking soda in here. So I'm going to do like maybe a third at a time, start it on slow. third. I mean, it's a very easy dough, really. The only ingredient that most people don't have, I would say, is the molasses. But that's very easy to find. And the last third of flour. And actually, let me tell you, the molasses that I'm using are, well, they're called fancy molasses. I'm not a connoisseur when it comes to molasses. I'm pretty sure there are different types, but this is the type I always buy and always use. Let me see if it says anything else on here. No, just says molasses, fancy molasses. So let's get this last third of the flour incorporated. And that is it. So let's bring this up. It's a bit of a wet dough. That's, well, I wouldn't even say wet. I would say sticky. But I mean, that's to be expected because of the molasses. You will want to chill this just to give the butter time to set up. Just going to make some room for myself. I'm going to scrape this down because I can see in the bottom of my bowl there's some dry bits. So we just want to get that incorporated. Let's turn this out. Does anybody else have that problem? I mean, I really like this machine, but I don't know, my paddle doesn't seem to reach the bottom or the sides. So let's just give this a quick knead just to get all these dry bits incorporated. Again, we're going to form this into a disc. And we're going to put it in the fridge just to let it set up. You know, this feels a little wet to me, so I'm just going to do a little sprinkle of flour. I think I'm going to get my, oh, sorry about that, guys. Going to get my bench scraper. There we go. So, we've got our disc. We're going to put this in the fridge at least half an hour, let it cool, and then we'll come back and we'll put all these cookies together. Alright, it's time to get rolling. So, get yourself a rolling pin. Got mine here. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Here's my dough. It's being chilled. So, you're going to need to flour your surface. Let's get a little flour out here. So, flour your surface. Flour your rolling pin a little bit. It's a shame, I just cleaned this counter, but here we go. So, start in the middle and push out, start in the middle, pull back. Turn it. Start in the middle, push out, start in the middle, pull back. It's going to crack. It's okay. That's what happens with butter cookies. So, and I can actually see little flecks of butter. That's a good sign. So now, for just the butter cookie, my mother used to make them quite thin, but I like to treat them more as a North American shortbread. So I make them about 1/4 of an inch thick. So that's about 1/4 of an inch. So I've got different cutters. I have an angel, I have a Santa Claus, I have a heart, a boot, a star. This one's a little tricky. I find the tail of the star often breaks off. And a bell. So really, get yourself a very flat implement so that you can lift off the dough. Have yourself a baking pan ready. I line mine with parchment paper. And so this is the fun part for kids, right? This is the easy part. Just take your cutters. Let me back you guys up a bit so you can see. Take your cutter and just cut. So see, this is about how thick I have mine, which is about 1/4 of an inch. And just put it on your baking sheet. These do not spread out a lot, so you really don't need to be too careful. These are one of my son's favorites, so that's why I'm going to make these this year, because like I said, I won't be eating a lot. So see, this one here didn't come up, so just slide your implement underneath, pull it out, there we go. But like I said, I don't like using that star, it breaks up a lot. Here's our boot. So I'm just going to keep doing this. You probably don't want to watch the whole thing. We are going to be using the scraps, right? So don't worry. I'm going to leave mine plain because I think that's how he prefers them. But if you like to decorate your, you could do it with an icing. The way that we grew up doing it is you take some egg white, you beat it, and then you sprinkle it with different sprinkles. So like here, I've got just plain green sprinkles, I've got some red sprinkles. You can buy those chocolate sprinkles, whatever you like. I usually prefer the chocolate ones. So I'm going to keep doing this and I'll be back. Alright, so my one batch is in the oven. I'm going to let you know exactly how long I keep them in, but that's going to vary depending on how thick you rolled them. The trick is you do not want these to get much, if any, color. You're going to be able to tell that they're done when they start to turn like the slightest bit of golden brown, but I'm going to tell you how long I left mine in. So I just wanted to give you a quick demo of how to decorate them if you want to. Well, how we used to do this anyway, my mother. So it's just one egg white beaten with a fork till it's a bit frothy. Take a brush, paint the surface, take your sprinkles, and since this is Santa, we're going to make it red. This is something your kids would probably enjoy doing. It's a little more arts and craftsy. Take another one. Let's do a bell. Let's do that with the green. So really, your kids can, or you could do this however you like. You could, a heart would be nice and red, right? Let me just dump this. Let's do a heart. Again with some red. And these are just sugar crystals, which have been dyed. So, and you can do this two-tone, you could do, you know, I'm sure there's sprinkles out there on the market that I'm not even aware of. So let's do some red on there, some red on the bow, and on this heart. And then let's mix it up with a bit of green. So again, and these are now going to go in the oven just like the others. No time difference. All right, that was just a little demo on that. So now we're going to move on to the jam cookies. So as you can see, these are my scraps. Just push them back together. We're using the same dough. Push it together. Spread your flour around. I find spreading it, flattening it out a bit with my hands first is easier. Now these you don't want thick because it's going to be a double layer, right? You're making a sandwich. So you're going to roll these out fairly thin. I'm going to say probably 1/8 of an inch. And you're going to need a round cutter. So that looks good to me. So I have a cutter like this. You could use the bottom of a glass. You could use anything round that's sharp enough to cut through. This seems to be about 1.5 inches in diameter. So let's do this. You're going to do the entire surface with the rounds, okay? Now what you're going to want to do, you need tops and bottoms. No jokes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I screwed that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 14, 16. So I have 16 here. Half of them, 8, I'm going to leave as is. The other 8 need a hole in the center. I have these little cutters. Let me just check my cookies. Sorry about that, guys. Everything's being a bit temperamental. Let me just reset my oven. Sorry guys, be with you in a sec. Okay, so I have these cutters. So this one is a little heart, this one is a flower, a diamond, a plain circle, a little Santa Claus. So for the other 8, you want to put your cutter in the middle and cut that out. Oh, that's kind of funny. Cut that out! So put your flower, whatever. Let's use the Santa Claus. What didn't we use yet? Let's use the diamond. How many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more. Let's use the Santa. 8. Okay, this is how they're going to be baked. You're going to lift this off. Take the center out. You could just use, oh, I wanted to show you. If you don't have anything, if you just have, you know, the fitting for a piping bag, you could use this end just to make a little circle. So you're going to be left with this, and you're going to have others which are plain like this. Okay, and once they're baked, you're going to put jam on here, and this will go on top, and you put a little scoop of jam in the middle, and that's going to be your Linzer. I think they're called Linzer cookie. So let me just check on what I have in the oven. I don't want to burn them, and I'll be right back. So I just want to show you these before they go in. All right, so here they are on my baking sheet. I can put them fairly close because they're not going to spread much. Let me show you the other ones I pulled out. So here are the plain butter cookies. As you can see, they've just got a hint of color. The bottom is still very pale. That's what you want. So I wanted to tell you guys that this, what I made now, which is a half recipe, made 27 of these, and it's going to make 17 of these. All right? So 17 actual cookies, like the sandwiches. And that's just a half recipe. So that's plenty for what I need this year. If you make a whole recipe, just keep in mind you're going to have double that. The plain ones were in the oven for 9 minutes. These, I will let you know, these are rolled out thinner, so it should be quicker. Let me just show you. They're still hot, so here are the decorated ones. So those I just pulled out. I could have pulled these out a bit sooner. I wonder if the sugar absorbs the heat more, which could be the case. So these probably could have come out at 8 minutes. All right, so these are going in the oven now, always on the middle rack. I will, at 350 degrees, I'm going to start those, and I will let you know how long I left them in. So here we are back with your bonus cookie. Remember this, the gingerbread dough? So it's been chilling. You're going to break yourself off pieces, and you're going to want to roll about 1-inch balls, like that big. You're going to take a bowl of sugar, just plain sugar. You're going to roll it around in the sugar and put it on your baking sheet. These do spread, so keep yourself room. I'm going to continue that, and I'll show you the whole sheet once I'm done. Okay, so I've got one baking sheet done, just to show you. That's what they're going to look like. Now I'm going to put these in the fridge for about 10-15 minutes, and I'm going to tell you why. When the cookie dough is warm like it is right now, or let's say room temperature, it's going to melt really quickly. If you cool these down so that they're firmer, once they go in the oven, they're going to melt slower and they're going to spread out slower, which means that the inside, the last part to spread out, is going to remain a little bit softer, which gives this cookie a really nice bite. All right, so let's put these in the fridge. I'm going to roll the rest of my dough when they're all baked. Let me check the temperature for you guys. This is also at 350. Once these come out, I'll tell you how long they stayed in. All right, so now we're going to do the assembly of the butter cookies, or the Linzer cookies. I'm going to look that up for you guys. Don't mind this little dot of red. It's a piece of the colored sugar. So, as for which jam to use, that's up to you. Typical is raspberry. I've never had it with strawberry, so I don't think that's a flavor normally people use. Raspberry and orange marmalade, that's what I grew up with. You could try it with a plum butter or blackcurrant. I'm using blackcurrant jelly actually. So you're going to take the flat piece, the bottom piece. You're going to put a little amount on it. Spread it out almost to the edges. Then you're going to take your top piece, put it on top. Then you're going to take just a little dollop and put it in the center. That will level itself out. Okay, so there's one. Let's do the same thing again. Like, that's not even, I don't even think it's half a teaspoon. Like that. Put the top on. Incidentally, these were in the oven for 7 minutes. A little dollop in the center. I'm going to take this off. It's hard for me at this angle. So there we go. Wipe my hands. And then, to finish it off, you take some powdered sugar, icing sugar, you sprinkle it fairly generously over the top. And don't worry about the jam in the middle. The sugar melts into that and the jam will reappear. And that's it. So that's how you do the jam-filled cookies. All the cookies we're making today, I store them in tins and I put them in a cool place. I have a pantry in the garage, and here in winter it's quite cold in there. Today it's -11 Fahrenheit. Celsius, sorry. And and they'll keep for a good couple of weeks at least. So there you go, that's that cookie done, and right now the Christmas bonus gingerbread cookies are in the oven, so when those are out, I'll show those to you. So, not bad for a few hours worth of work. So we made the German butter cookies. We made the German Linzer cookies, which are the same dough. I used half a recipe, which yielded 27 of these, 17 of these, and then your bonus for this year was the gingerbread, chewy gingerbread. I just had one. These are so delicious. And it yielded, the recipe, which was also halved, yielded 34 of these. So I want to tell you, the trick to getting these chewy is as soon as you see any cracking, take them out. So for me, that happened to be at 8 minutes. But please, you know, for all these cookies, all the times I'm giving you, it really will depend on how thick it's rolled, how thin it's rolled, how big these balls were. So keep that in mind. If you want these to be crispier, let them keep cracking. So probably maybe 10 minutes. So there you go. Give these a try. The recipes will be below. The recipes I'm going to do, the ingredients I give you is for a full recipe, which would make double of all this, but this is enough for me this year. So give them a try. Please like this video. It helps me keep bringing you some content. Give these German recipes a try. This obviously is not a German recipe. This is North American, but they're so good. You know, I had to include them somewhere. Have yourselves a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever it is you're celebrating, if you're celebrating. And yeah, give these a try. Thumbs up, please. Like my video, subscribe, and bon appetit.